Welcome to Starlight Sci-Fi, where the cosmos comes alive with tales of wonder, danger, and intrigue. Today we explore a chilling revelation about one of the most feared forces in the universe. Brace yourself as we uncover the power and influence of humanity's war machine in caution, human war vessel entering restricted sector. In the vast expanse of the cosmos, countless civilizations thrived under the watchful eye of the Galactic Council. For millennia, peace and diplomacy were the cornerstones of intergalactic relations. Disputes were resolved through negotiation, conflicts were diffused with mediation, and the balance of power was meticulously maintained. The galaxy believed itself to be civilized, enlightened even, until humanity arrived. Emerging from a distant spiral galaxy, humans shattered this delicate balance with an intensity that defied all known logic. Their arrival was unassuming at first, but their presence grew, spreading across systems at a pace that stunned even the most advanced species. They were explorers, traders, diplomats, and warriors. It was not humanity's ambition that unsettled the galaxy, but their sheer power and unyielding resolve. Their technology rivaled the greatest minds of the Arcturian inventors. Their starships moved with a speed that baffled the most sophisticated sensors. Yet, it was their approach to conflict that truly terrified the galaxy. Humanity perceived warfare not as a strategic contest, but as an absolute eradication of opposition. Their military doctrine was built on one simple principle: complete and overwhelming victory. Admiral Talon of the Zirconian Armada, a veteran strategist and respected tactician, stood before the Galactic Council, his shimmering scales reflecting the dim lights of the Grand Chamber. His voice was measured, but the urgency in his words was unmistakable. He presented a detailed analysis of human military strategies that left even the most stoic council members visibly shaken. To Talon, humans were not just another aggressive species. They were a force of nature, an existential threat that could not be reasoned with or contained. The Admiral recounted historical records, showing how humans responded to provocation not with measured force, but with overwhelming might. They did not seek to conquer or subjugate. They sought to eliminate threats entirely. To them, a decisive victory meant the complete destruction of their enemies, leaving nothing behind that could rise against them. This philosophy was not born from malice, but from a history of survival against insurmountable odds. It was this cold, calculated approach that made them so terrifyingly efficient. When a human war vessel entered a restricted sector, the implications were staggering. It was not merely an incursion, it was a declaration. Entire star systems prepared for evacuation at the mere sight of a human battleship. Their presence alone was enough to shift the balance of power, for they wielded technologies that could reduce planets to ashes in moments. The galaxy had witnessed power before, but never like this. Yet many council members were skeptical. How could one species, no matter how advanced, truly pose such a threat? Some dismissed Talon's warnings as paranoia, exaggerations born from fear. But Talon was not one to be swayed by emotion. He stood firm, his eyes fixed on the council as he recounted the events of Yavon 5. The room fell silent, the weight of his words sinking in. It was not just a battle, it was a demonstration of power, a chilling reminder that humans were unlike anything the galaxy had ever faced. The Admiral's final words echoed through the chamber, heavy with foreboding. The galaxy could no longer afford to ignore the threat that humanity posed. They were not conquerors seeking dominion, but guardians willing to burn entire worlds to protect their kind. The question was not if humanity would strike again, but when. And when they did, no one would be safe. Yavon 5 was a world of breathtaking beauty, its landscapes painted with lush forests and shimmering lakes. It was a thriving hub of commerce and culture, where merchants from distant star systems gathered to trade exotic goods under golden skies. The people of Yavon 5 were prosperous, living in harmony with their environment, their cities blending seamlessly into the natural world. It was a jewel of the galaxy, a testament to what civilization could achieve when peace reigned. But peace, as the galaxy would learn, was fragile. It began with rumors of unrest spreading through the markets, murmurs of rebellion echoing in the council chambers. A faction calling themselves the Sovereign Dawn rose in defiance, fueled by ideological zeal and armed with advanced weaponry. Their influence spread like wildfire, engulfing entire regions. What began as isolated protests quickly escalated into violent uprisings. The government of Yavon 5 struggled to maintain order, but the insurgents were relentless, their tactics brutal and precise. In a matter of weeks, chaos consumed the once peaceful world. Desperate and outmatched, the leaders of Yavon 5 turned to the Galactic Council for aid. The Council, bound by its charter to preserve peace, deliberated endlessly, debating sanctions and diplomatic resolutions. But the situation worsened. The Sovereign Dawn seized control of critical infrastructure, threatening to plunge the planet into darkness. It was then that the Council made a fateful decision. They called upon the humans. Humanity had a reputation for efficiency in warfare. Their methods were swift and decisive, leaving no room for negotiation or compromise. Yet, no one could have predicted the magnitude of their response. A single human war fleet arrived in orbit above Yavon 5, its vessels gleaming like predatory beasts under the light of twin suns. The Sovereign Dawn broadcasted messages of defiance, vowing to fight to the last, but the humans did not respond. They did not negotiate. They did not warn. They acted. The bombardment began without ceremony, a calculated assault on an unprecedented scale. In mere moments, over 2 megatons of ordnance rained down upon a 50-square-mile area, obliterating everything in its path. Mountains were flattened, forests vaporized, and cities reduced to smoldering craters. The earth itself seemed to scream as shockwaves tore through the landscape, leaving behind only desolation. To the humans, it was a light bombardment, a tactical strike meant to cripple the insurgency's command centers and supply lines. To the people of Yavon 5, it was the end of the world. The Sovereign Dawn was annihilated, their bases turned to dust, their leaders erased in the blink of an eye. Resistance vanished, extinguished under the weight of human firepower. But the devastation was not limited to the insurgents. Civilians caught within the blast radius were vaporized, entire communities erased from existence. The lush landscapes were replaced with charred ruins, the air heavy with the stench of ash and destruction. Silence followed, a haunting stillness that lingered long after the last explosion echoed across the wasteland. To the Galactic Council, the victory was Pyrrhic. Yavon 5 was liberated, but at a cost so great it left the Council divided. Some praised the humans for their effectiveness, arguing that the ends justified the means. Others were horrified, questioning how such destruction could be justified under any circumstance. But the humans were unmoved. To them, the mission was a success. They had eradicated the threat, and in doing so restored order. Yet the consequences were far-reaching. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as images of the scorched Earth spread across the interstellar networks. Planets once eager to ally with humanity now hesitated, fear overshadowing admiration. The Council had asked for help, and they had received it far more than they had bargained for. The aftermath of Yavon 5 echoed through the halls of power, a grim reminder of what it meant to summon the human war machine. It was not just a battle, it was a revelation. Humanity did not fight to win, they fought to eliminate. And they would stop at nothing to achieve their objective. The galaxy was left to ponder the terrifying implications. If this was a light bombardment, what horrors could humanity unleash if truly provoked? Humanity's methods were ruthless, shaped by a history of survival against impossible odds. Their military philosophy was born from the harshest crucibles, where hesitation meant extinction. In war, they did not seek victory, they sought absolute elimination of threats. It was a cold, unyielding logic that drove them, one that left no room for mercy or negotiation. The galaxy learned this truth the hard way, when the keepers of the sacred word crossed paths with human forces. The keepers were a notorious terrorist cell, feared across star systems for their brutality and cunning. They operated from the shadows, orchestrating bombings and assassinations that destabilized entire sectors. No military force had been able to root them out, their network spreading like a shadowy web across planets and star stations. The Galactic Council had tried everything: diplomacy, sanctions, counterinsurgency operations, but the Keepers were always one step ahead. Desperate for a solution, the Council turned to humanity, hoping their tactical genius could achieve what no other species had managed. Humans accepted the mission with an efficiency that was as unnerving as it was impressive. They began by dismantling the Keepers' communications, jamming signals and intercepting transmissions. Then came the surgical strikes, pinpoint assaults on supply caches and hidden outposts. The Keepers never saw their attackers. Their bases were incinerated by orbital bombardments launched from light years away, guided by targeting algorithms so precise they could distinguish between a weapon depot and a civilian warehouse. Within days, the Keepers were in disarray, their supply lines severed, their safe houses reduced to smoldering ruins. But the humans did not stop there. Their next move was a calculated decapitation strike, aimed at the leadership of the Keepers. Intelligence drones infiltrated the deepest layers of enemy territory, feeding data back to command centers aboard human warships. The locations of every high-ranking operative were pinpointed with surgical precision. Within hours, those locations were vaporized by kinetic bombardments traveling at hypersonic speeds. The leaders of the Keepers vanished, erased in an instant, their legacies reduced to ashes. The operation was flawless, executed with a level of coordination that stunned the Galactic Council. What no one had expected, however, was the aftermath. With their leaders gone and their network shattered, the remnants of the Keepers attempted to flee. Humanity did not allow it. They deployed hunter-killer drones, relentless machines programmed to eliminate every last insurgent. The galaxy watched in awe and horror as humanity pursued their enemies with a cold determination, leaving no survivors. In a matter of days, the Keepers of the Sacred Word were extinct, their ideology erased from existence. It was a victory, but at a cost that could not be measured in casualties or collateral damage. Humanity's tactics were brutally effective, but they were also absolute. They left no room for redemption, no chance for surrender. To them, a threat was something to be eradicated, not negotiated with. Their logic was terrifyingly simple. If it could rise again, it must be destroyed completely. The galaxy was still grappling with this revelation when news of New Kalanti broke. The planet was a bustling trade hub, a center of commerce and culture. It was also the site of a catastrophic viral outbreak. The disease spread with terrifying speed, showing no mercy to its victims. Panic swept through New Kalanti as hospitals overflowed and quarantine measures failed. The virus was unlike anything the galaxy had seen: aggressive, adaptable, and devastatingly lethal. Humanity's response was swift and merciless. To them, the virus represented an existential threat. It had to be contained, no matter the cost. They launched a full-scale nuclear bombardment, reducing New Kalanti to radioactive rubble. Everything within a 100-mile radius was vaporized, the city's vibrant life extinguished in seconds. To the humans, it was a necessary action, a logical decision to prevent the virus from spreading to neighboring worlds. To the galaxy, it was an atrocity. Outrage erupted as the scale of the destruction became clear. Billions of lives were lost, countless more affected by the fallout. Cries for justice echoed through the Galactic Council, with demands to try humanity for war crimes. But the humans stood their ground, their defense unyielding. They argued that the Council had requested their intervention, that they had acted to prevent a greater catastrophe. The Council's own charter supported this logic, leaving them with no legal ground to prosecute. Reluctantly, they dismissed the case, a decision that would haunt them for decades. The galaxy was left to confront a harsh truth: humanity was bound by its own code, one that viewed morality as secondary to survival. They did not fight for honor or glory, but for preservation. Their actions were not driven by hate but by cold, calculated necessity. Yet this made them no less terrifying. They were willing to cross lines that no other species would dare approach, wielding power without hesitation or remorse. To oppose them was to face annihilation. Humanity's approach to warfare was rooted in a philosophy that defied conventional logic. To them, extreme measures were not acts of cruelty, but necessary actions to ensure survival. They viewed threats through a lens of absolute risk management, calculating the worst possible outcomes and acting to prevent them no matter the cost. This strategic philosophy set them apart from every other species in the galaxy, for while others sought victory, humanity sought security. They did not merely win wars, they eliminated the potential for future conflict. This mindset was never more evident than during the quarantine crisis. It began as a minor incident, a small outbreak on the remote mining colony of Kethros. The virus was unusual, rapidly mutating and showing an alarming resistance to known treatments. Local medics struggled to contain it, but within days the disease spread across the colony, claiming lives with horrifying efficiency. Reports reached the Galactic Council, who began deliberations on how to respond. They considered quarantine protocols, medical aid, and evacuation procedures, but humanity did not wait for diplomacy or debate. They acted. To human strategists, the virus was a potential extinction event. They did not see a medical crisis but a catastrophic threat to galactic stability. Their response was decisive and terrifying in its scope. They proposed a quarantine zone not just around Kethros but spanning 100 light-years in every direction. The logic was simple. If the virus could travel through trade routes or stow away on starships, it had to be isolated far beyond the immediate outbreak. The quarantine would be enforced by human warships, with orders to destroy any vessel attempting to breach the perimeter, no exceptions. The Galactic Council was stunned by the proposal. To them, such measures were draconian, even apocalyptic. Entire star systems would be cut off, economies would collapse, and millions of lives would be disrupted. Yet humanity remained unmoved. They presented their calculations, showing the potential spread of the virus if even one ship escaped. Their projections were grim, predicting the annihilation of entire civilizations within months. Faced with such logic, the Council reluctantly agreed. Humanity's fleet mobilized with terrifying speed, surrounding the quarantine zone with a network of warships and automated defense platforms. They deployed sensor drones to monitor any signs of escape, their vigilance absolute. Within days, the quarantine was airtight, enforced by a wall of firepower unmatched by any other species. But the humans went further. They began sterilizing nearby moons and asteroids, eliminating any chance of the virus surviving outside the primary zone. They used orbital bombardments to incinerate debris fields and launched radiation pulses to cleanse contaminated areas. Their thoroughness was chilling, leaving no stone unturned. But their actions were not without consequences. Isolated within the quarantine zone, the people of Kethros faced a bleak reality. Supplies ran low, communications were severed, and hope dwindled. Attempts to flee were met with unyielding force. Human warships fired without hesitation, obliterating escape pods and shuttles alike. To the humans, these were not civilians but potential carriers of a galaxy-killing plague. Their orders were clear: no one could leave the zone, no matter the circumstances. The galaxy watched in horror as the quarantine dragged on for months. News of starvation and disease within the zone sparked outrage, with protests erupting on core worlds. The Galactic Council faced mounting pressure to intervene, but they were powerless against humanity's military might. The humans held the line, their commitment to containment unwavering. To them, the quarantine was not cruelty but necessity. They were saving the galaxy, even if it meant sacrificing millions. Then, as suddenly as it began, the crisis ended. The virus mutated again, this time into a benign strain that lost its lethality. Human scientists verified the data, confirming that the threat had passed. The quarantine was lifted, but the scars remained. Kethros was unrecognizable, its population decimated, its infrastructure ruined. Survivors emerged to find their world in ruins, their lives shattered. To them, the humans were not saviors but executioners, their actions brutal and heartless. Yet, humanity did not seek gratitude or approval. They had achieved their objective, stopping the virus from spreading beyond Kethros. To them, the ends justified the means. Their philosophy was unyielding. If a threat could not be controlled, it had to be eradicated. The galaxy struggled to understand this cold logic, torn between relief and resentment. They were safe, but at what cost? The implications were staggering. Humanity was willing to take actions that no other species would even consider. Their strategic philosophy was beyond comprehension, driven by a fear of failure so great they would sacrifice anything to avoid it. They were not conquerors seeking power but guardians safeguarding existence. Yet, this made them no less terrifying. If they could justify the quarantine of an entire sector, what other extremes were they capable of? Humanity's influence stretched across the cosmos, a force so vast that it defied comprehension. They were not merely participants in galactic politics but architects of interstellar order. Their reach spanned at least 27 galaxies, and their presence was felt in over 1,722 more. To the galaxy, they were an anomaly, a species that had risen from a single planet to command entire clusters of stars. But this power was not the result of conquest or empire building. It was born from necessity, from a relentless drive to survive in a universe filled with chaos and danger. They were classified as a Type 3 civilization, a designation that marked them as beings who could harness the energy of entire galaxies. They built Dyson spheres around stars, capturing the power of suns to fuel their colossal fleets. Their technology was incomprehensible, their ships capable of bending space and time, traversing thousands of light years in an instant. Yet, it was not their machines or weapons that made them feared. It was their unyielding will, their refusal to be vulnerable, that commanded respect and dread. Humanity's presence was a double-edged sword. They brought stability, enforcing peace through overwhelming power. Pirate fleets disbanded at the mere sight of a human war vessel. Rogue planets were realigned to prevent orbital collisions. They maintained hypergate networks that connected distant worlds, facilitating trade and communication on an unimaginable scale. To many species they were saviors, protectors who shielded the weak from cosmic threats. But to others they were tyrants, imposing order through fear and domination. Their influence was not merely political or military. It extended to culture, economics, and even ideology. Human languages became the lingua franca of commerce, their currencies stabilizing entire economies. Their art and literature spread across galaxies, influencing civilizations that had existed for millennia. Yet this cultural dominance came at a price. Traditional customs and beliefs were overshadowed, replaced by human ideals of progress and efficiency. For some species, this was liberation, a path to modernization. For others, it was cultural annihilation, an erosion of identity. The galaxy struggled to understand humanity's motives. They did not conquer worlds for resources or glory. They did not demand tribute or loyalty. They governed from the shadows, influencing without ruling. Treaties were signed not out of friendship but out of necessity, alliances formed to avoid confrontation. Those who opposed them were not destroyed but isolated, cut off from trade and technology until they capitulated. It was a form of control that was invisible but absolute, a web of influence that bound the galaxy to humanity's will. The true extent of their power became evident during the Althor incident. The Great Rift of Althor was a cosmic anomaly, a tear in space-time that threatened to consume everything around it. Scientists predicted that if left unchecked, the rift would expand, devouring nearby star systems and destabilizing hyperspace corridors. The Galactic Council was paralyzed, unable to find a solution. But humanity did not hesitate. They built a hypergate, channeling the energy of a nearby quasar to contain the rift. It was a feat of engineering beyond comprehension, bending the laws of physics to their will. But their solution was not without consequences. The energy required to stabilize the rift was immense, creating gravitational waves that disrupted nearby planets. Entire ecosystems were thrown into chaos, and star routes were altered, stranding thousands of ships. The affected worlds demanded reparations, accusing humanity of recklessness. But their protests were silenced by a stark realization: the alternative was annihilation. Humanity had saved them, even if the cost was high. This was their way, pragmatic, decisive, and indifferent to collateral damage. Their actions were not driven by altruism or ambition. They were motivated by survival, by a desire to control chaos before it could threaten them. They did not see themselves as rulers or conquerors, but as guardians, maintaining order in a dangerous universe. Yet this made them no less terrifying. Their logic was absolute, their actions unchallenged. They were willing to take steps that no other species would dare, crossing moral lines without hesitation. To oppose them was to defy inevitability, to fight against the currents of history itself. This was the reality of humanity's intergalactic influence. They were a force of nature, a civilization that shaped the cosmos through sheer willpower. Their actions could bring prosperity or devastation, depending on their calculations of risk and reward. They did not seek allies or enemies, only stability. Yet, their version of stability was cold and uncompromising, a vision of order enforced by unyielding power. The galaxy was left to grapple with a haunting question. How could they coexist with a species that controlled their fate with such casual indifference? The galaxy was no stranger to conflict, but humanity's actions were in a league of their own. Their decisions were calculated, their strategies precise, and their consequences far-reaching. To most species they were saviors, protectors who prevented existential threats from spiraling out of control. But to others they were monsters, willing to go to any length to secure victory. It was this duality that made them both admired and feared a force that could bring salvation or destruction, depending on their interpretation of risk. Humanity's interventions were never random. They were responses to crises that no other civilization could handle, challenges that threatened the very fabric of reality. The galaxy learned this during the Omega Plague outbreak. It began as a medical anomaly on a remote research station, an illness that defied all known biology. Victims did not merely die, they disintegrated, their molecular structures unraveling in a chain reaction that spread through physical contact. The contagion was unstoppable, spreading faster than light via subspace particles. The Galactic Council was paralyzed, debating containment protocols as the plague spread across sectors. Humanity did not wait for consensus. They deployed their fleets to the affected regions, enforcing quarantine zones with brutal efficiency. Any ship attempting to escape was vaporized without warning, the humans prioritizing containment over mercy. But they did not stop there. They used quasar-based hyper-weapons to sterilize entire planets, reducing them to atomic dust to ensure no trace of the plague remained. Billions of lives were lost, entire civilizations erased. To the galaxy it was genocide. To humanity it was necessary. Their actions sparked outrage. Protests erupted on core worlds, denouncing humanity's ruthlessness. The Galactic Council convened emergency sessions, debating sanctions and military action. But their anger was tempered by fear, for they knew humanity's power was unmatched. Any attempt to retaliate would be suicide. Instead, they launched an investigation, seeking to try humanity for war crimes. It was a desperate bid for justice, an attempt to hold them accountable. But humanity's defense was ironclad. They had been requested to intervene, and their actions were justified to prevent greater catastrophe. The trial was a spectacle, broadcast across galaxies. The evidence was overwhelming footage of planetary bombardments, data on the billions who perished. But humanity remained unmoved, presenting their calculations with cold logic. They demonstrated that the plague, if left unchecked, would have consumed entire galaxies, erasing trillions of lives. Their actions had prevented the extinction of countless species. The Council was forced to concede. They dismissed the charges, acknowledging that the consequences of inaction would have been far worse. The verdict shattered the galaxy's perception of justice. To many it was proof that humanity was above the law, untouchable by any moral standard. Their power was absolute, their logic unquestionable. Yet it also revealed a terrifying truth. Humanity did not see morality as a guiding principle. They saw it as a variable in their equations, a factor to be balanced against survival. If the cost of saving the galaxy was billions of lives, they would pay it without hesitation. The implications were staggering. Humanity's actions were extreme but rational, grounded in a strategic philosophy that prioritized security over compassion. They were not conquerors or tyrants but guardians who safeguarded existence through ruthless pragmatism. Yet, this made them no less dangerous. Their willingness to sacrifice entire civilizations in the name of stability was a power no other species dared to wield. To them, the ends always justified the means. The galaxy was left with a choice: accept humanity's protection and live under their cold logic, or defy them and risk annihilation. It was a dilemma with no easy answers, a moral paradox that defied conventional ethics. Humanity's power was a double-edged sword, a shield that could just as easily become a weapon. Their presence ensured peace, but at the cost of freedom and autonomy. They were guardians, but they were also executioners. The debate raged across worlds, splitting alliances and tearing societies apart. Some argued that humanity was a necessary evil, a force that prevented cosmic disasters. Others demanded resistance, calling for independence from their influence. But all agreed on one point: humanity was unstoppable. Their technology, their military might, their strategic vision, all were beyond comprehension. To challenge them was to face extinction. Yet to submit to them was to lose sovereignty. In the end, the galaxy faced an uncomfortable truth. Humanity was not merely a superpower but a fundamental force of nature. They were inevitable, a species whose logic transcended morality, whose actions were dictated by survival at any cost. They did not seek dominance but control, ensuring that nothing could threaten them. This made them the most dangerous civilization in existence, not because of their weapons, but because of their resolve. The galaxy had learned to live with humanity, but coexistence was not the same as peace. Their presence was a constant reminder of power that could not be challenged, a force that shaped the cosmos without opposition. Yet, it was not just their military might that kept the galaxy in line. It was their philosophy, their strategic vision that saw threats before they emerged, neutralizing dangers with cold efficiency. To humanity, prevention was better than cure, even if it meant eradicating entire civilizations to maintain balance. This doctrine became evident during the containment of Zeta Helios. It began with an anomaly, a distortion in space-time that defied all known physics. Explorers who ventured too close never returned, their signals lost in a sea of interference. The Galactic Council dispatched a research fleet, but they too vanished without a trace. Panic spread as neighboring systems reported gravitational shifts, stars dimming as energy was siphoned away. Scientists speculated that it was a singularity, a tear in reality itself. But humanity knew better. They identified it as a parasitic universe, a pocket dimension feeding on real space energy, growing stronger with each consumption. Their solution was brutal and final. They proposed a quarantine zone spanning 100 light years, a barrier that would isolate the anomaly and prevent it from spreading. But they did not stop there. They activated a quasar-based hyperweapon, channeling the energy of a dying star to collapse the pocket dimension. The blast was unprecedented, a pulse of raw power that erased the anomaly from existence. But the shock wave shattered subspace, severing hyperspace corridors and isolating entire sectors. Thousands of ships were lost, unable to navigate the fractured pathways. Worlds were cut off from supply lines, plunging into famine and chaos. The Galactic Council was outraged, accusing humanity of recklessness, but they defended their actions, presenting evidence that the anomaly would have consumed the entire galaxy if left unchecked. To them, the loss of a few sectors was a reasonable price for survival. Yet their logic was cold comfort to the species left stranded, civilizations that faced extinction because of humanity's strategic decision. It was this harsh pragmatism that defined their philosophy and unwavering commitment to security, regardless of the collateral damage. Faced with this reality, the galaxy was forced to reconsider its approach. Diplomacy was no longer about alliances or trade agreements but about survival. To oppose humanity was to invite annihilation, but to align with them meant accepting their brutal logic. Treaties were rewritten, not for mutual benefit but to avoid provoking human intervention. Entire species restructured their governments to mirror human efficiency, hoping to avoid becoming targets of their strategic calculus. Resistance movements disbanded, realizing that rebellion would be crushed before it even began. Admiral Talon's analysis concluded with a stark warning: humanity was not evil or malicious. They were logical, calculating, and utterly indifferent to emotional appeals. They did not wage war out of hatred or greed, but out of necessity, eliminating threats before they could materialize. To understand them was to accept that morality was a luxury they could not afford. In their eyes, survival was the only absolute, and they would sacrifice anything to ensure it. This made them the most dangerous force in the universe, not because of their weapons, but because of their unyielding resolve. The galaxy faced an existential dilemma. How could they negotiate with a species that did not understand fear or mercy? How could they coexist with a civilization that saw extermination as a precaution? The answer was both simple and terrifying: they could not. The only path forward was submission, and acceptance of humanity's order and the stability it provided. But it was a peace built on fear, a security maintained by the threat of annihilation. The galaxy had traded freedom for survival, shackled by humanity's cold logic. And yet, there was hope. Some believed that understanding humanity's philosophy could lead to coexistence, a balance where power did not mean oppression. They studied human history, searching for moments of compassion, glimmers of empathy buried beneath layers of pragmatism. But the risk was immense, for any miscalculation would trigger consequences beyond imagination. It was a delicate dance, a fragile peace maintained by careful diplomacy and strategic foresight. One wrong move could awaken the sleeping giant, a force that would reshape reality itself. This was the galaxy's new reality, a universe where humanity's logic dictated existence, where survival was ensured by fear and control. It was a peace built on the ashes of defiance, a stability forged by the threat of annihilation. Yet it was also an opportunity, a chance to learn from the most powerful civilization in history. The galaxy could either adapt or perish, evolve under humanity's influence or be erased by their strategic calculus. It was a choice with no right answer, a paradox that defied morality. Admiral Talon's final advice echoed through the halls of the Galactic Council: form treaties, broker peace, and never provoke human intervention. Understand their logic, for it was the key to survival. Recognize that humanity did not see war as destruction but as prevention, a way to eliminate threats before they emerged. It was a strategy born from necessity, a doctrine that ensured victory at any cost. And in this galaxy, victory was all that mattered. This was Caution, human war vessel entering restricted sector. A chilling look into the power and philosophy of humanity. If you enjoyed this story, remember to like, subscribe, and join us next time on Starlight Sci-Fi, where the universe's most captivating tales await. Stay curious, stay vigilant,